کریمه آل محمد، حضرت معصوم خوش آمد، میزنه نقاره مشهد. حضرت معصوم خوش آمد، گل طاها اومده، کوثر موسا اومده، دوباره زهرا اومده ای جانم. روح و ریحان اومده، قبله ایران اومده، خواهر سلطان اومده ای جانم. شد ذکر لبه همه انبیا، یا اخت الرضا اشفعی لنا، یا اخت الرضا اشفعی لنا، یا اخت الرضا اشفعی لنا. رو در و دیوار صحنش جبرئیل که نوشته، هر کی زائر تو باشه یقینا اهل بهشته. زائر قبر تو خانوم، زائر عرش معلاست، به خدا که حرم تو حرم حضرت زهرا. یه نخ چادر تو رشته ایمان منه، به خدا که حرمت روزه رضوان منه. یه نخ چادر تو رشته ایمان منه، به خدا که حرمت روزه رضوان منه. از صحن دلم میره کربلا، یا اخت الرضا اشفعی لنا.
سلام. شما خوبیستین؟ بسیار الحمدلله، تشکر. تشکر التماس دعا.
السلام عليك يا بنت فاطمة وخديجة، السلام عليك يا بنت أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا بنت الحسن والحسين، السلام عليك، السلام عليك، السلام عليك يا.
Reciting this ziyarah on behalf of ourselves, our sisters and brothers, our parents, our family, our friends, all that have asked us to remember them in ziyarah qurbatan ila Allah ta'ala. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام على آدم صفوة الله، السلام على نوح نبي الله، السلام على إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام على موسى كليم الله، السلام على عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا خير خلق الله، السلام عليك يا صفي الله، السلام عليك يا محمد بن عبد الله خاتم النبي، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وصي رسول الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليكما يا سبطي نبي الرحمة وسيدي شباب أهل الجنة. O Fatima, please intercede for me on the day of Qiyamah in Jannah, because you have a great status with Allah. Ya Allah, I ask that my ending is one with victory and happiness.
Azar mein laya Bibi Masouma kum, Bibi Masouma kum, Bibi Masouma kum. Quran ka itrat se कुरान का इतरत से रिश्ते को बनाने, कुरान का इतरत से रिश्ते को बताने, लोगों की निगाहें सरे ज़ैनब से हटाने, नेज़े पे शहीदी ने, नेज़े पे शहीदी ने कुरान सुनाया, बीबी मासूमा कुम।
It's great. It's a great scholar. It's Ayatollah. Sayed Hashim. He's one of the top students of Ayatollah. I mentioned him like that really well. I met him many times. He came to our class. Magnificent scholar. He was deemed to be the successor to Ayatollah Khamenei because they're very close. When I met Ayatollah Khamenei about 18 years ago, he was next to me. Sayed Hashim was a great marcher. He only passed away a few years ago. This is one of our greatest Maraji. Our greatest Maraji. Ayatollah Hazrat Tabrizi, the phenomenal Marji. Ayatollah Araki, he was considered the top. He died and then Ayatollah Sistani. So he was between Ayatollah Khoi and Ayatollah Sistani. This one, Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Ruhani. Now they're buried like, to the wall. This is downstairs. Ayatollah Sadiq Ruhani only passed away about 2 months ago. Remember him? Great Marja Tafsir, very powerful, very knowledgeable, brilliant. This Ayatollah Fadl al-Karani. He was one of the best students of Ayatollah Khomeini. He was a great Marja. Again, very, very keen about the whole idea of Sayeda Fatima. And when in his funeral over 1 million people about the Shi'a millionaire Martyrs. This is Ayatollah Gul Baygani. Remember Ayatollah Gul Baygani? Ayatollah Gul Baygani is top Marja. Straight on the body of Imam Khomeini. Ayatollah Gul Baygani was considered to be the top Marja. But there was a dispute because obviously in Iran some followed him, in Iraq we followed Sayyid Fatima. But he died in 1414, so exactly 30 years ago. That's in 1993. So when he died, Ayatollah Araki came. This is Ayatollah Sheikh Mohammed Al-Hilli, who is the son of Ayatollah Utma Sheikh Abdul Karim Hali. Now Sheikh Abdul Karim Hali, find his grave, his father is the founder of the Nur House. Right? It's a very recent house by now. So Najaf is 1,000 years of age. This is about 100. Yes. Because that's 1,000 years old. Najaf is heavily pushed back about 30 years of Saddam's rule. Many students left, many scholars were executed. So now in the last 20 years it's trying to rebuild it. So home is up there in terms of its technological performances, the Muslims, the wide variety, student numbers, everything is much more advanced than home. Historically, Najaf is much more. But yes, if you sit a scholar is from Qom and a scholar from Najaf, they do tend to tease each other. I'm from this and from this. But it's interesting, a lot of scholars in Qom used to study in Najaf. Now, Ayatollah Wahid Khurasan, number of other Maraji, they're all students of Ayatollah Khoi. They were in Najaf. And many of the scholars in Najaf are actually Iranian. So,
What about Sheikh Mohammed Al-Hilli? Where did he study?
Najaf. So before we talk about Ayatollah Najaf, this is a magnificent scholar who's written some brilliant works translated to English. Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi. Misbah Yazdi died recently, I'll tell you when. 2 years ago. Prolific writer. great scholar that's written so much important works. And of course here, look at this grave. This grave is so unique from everyone else because we haven't put Ayatollah or anything. He has requested that his name is Al-Abd Bahjat, the servant Bahjat. He's another level. He hasn't even put Sheikh. Just look at it. Can you see it? It says Al-Abd, the servant. Now, most of us have heard so many stories of Ayatollah Bahjat. I mean, because he's obviously kind of considered to be an individual, gave so many lessons on mysticism and thought and self-discipline. People used to see him in two different places at the same time. He was able to see many things that people couldn't. He was able to give monumental advice that people found mind-blowing. Today people still really, but he was also a Martyr of the belief. He was an Ayatollah of me. Until now, I know, like one of my teachers in Najaf, who is considered to be a very likely to be after Ayatollahs, all of his books he puts Muhammad Baqir Imam, Discipline Sheikh, or Ayatollah. They are so wary of this getting into their heart and mind. Our greatest grand sign of God. But he has chosen an habit because there is a station that's higher than prophethood. It's Quran says, سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله. Glory be to the one who caused his servant that night to go from the sacred house to the Masjid al-Aqsa. Allah calls the Prophet his servant. In the Tashahhud we say, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا عَبْدُهُ وَرَسُولُهُ, not Rasuluhu. Servitude is the highest level any human being can reach. You think prophethood or messenger? Of course. That's a level close. He says, I want to be called the servant. That is the greatest merit anyone could be, calling themselves. If we have, let's say, the audacity or even the strength to call ourselves a servant, because a servant can't just call themselves a servant. With qualities to be considered a servant.
I was going to ask you that. How do you just make yourself say
you can't just say I'm a, because anybody could, because for example, a servant has no right to object to his master. Man once went and bought a servant from a market. Just an example is given in history. He said to him, what's your name? He said, whatever you want. He said, what you eat? He said, whatever you give me. He said, what you wear? He said, whatever you clothe me. He said, don't you want anything? He said, how dare a servant dictate to a master what they want? So, you know, now I talk and people come from, you're talking too much submission. I mean, look at these ulama. They have, it says, Muti, I am obedient. I do whatever you ask. But we've lost this. We've lost it in the Western world. Our youth have lost it completely. Everything, why? Tell me this, no, I don't want, I want to say the reason, I want. These scholars have instructed. And on the day of Qiyamah, well, let's say, I wish. So here it says, Al-Abd, and over there as well. Al-Wasil ila munah, Al-Wasil ila munah. The one who reached to where he wanted to reach. And he's a lecture teacher. Honestly. Wasil ila munah. Where he wanted to reach, he reached. Wow, that's deep.
That's very
This is Ayatollah al-Kadhim. There's not much written about him at all. Ayatollah al-Kadhim is a superb martyr that we hear. Who for many years was close to Imam. This is one of my favorite schools. Ayatollah.
Oh yes,
The one word is what a scholar, honestly. And you know, we talk about him and you just feel his writings, his passion. He was martyred, he was assassinated. Shaheed this. In the early years of the Islamic Revolution, he was martyred. He's written so much works that are translated to English, and you haven't read some of his work. Like, for example, his book Divine Justice is very good. Read it? I haven't read it. I have a copy of it. That's it. It's always good to have copies of books. Yes. Allama Tabatabai.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
What a scholar he is as well. Interesting, Allama Tabatabai, his works are very deep. He had a choice to become a Jew. But he didn't even become an Ayatollah. So a lot of people today call him Ayatollah, and he's not. Because many people don't know what Ayatollah means. An Ayatollah is somebody who dedicates his life to fiqh and extrapolates laws, Islamic laws from Quran and Hadith, and then can develop and become a Marji. Ayatollah publishes works and people follow him. That's how it works. Allama Tabatabai dedicated his life to tafsir of Quran, the mysticism in Irfan, writing books about Akhirah. That's what he was constantly in deep thought. So he's the author of Al-Mizan and a number of other important works as well. Have been translated. Allama Tabatabai had this thing, deep love for the wife. She died before he used to go and sit hours. He was not Ayatollah al-Kadhim, phenomenal on another really great scholar. I've met him. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed me to meet some of these scholars. This one, Ibrahim Anini, no one said Ibrahim Anini authors, with a number of works have been translated to English. One of them is called Self-Build. Remember? Yeah. Really good book on mysticism. I like a lot. It's all self-build. Brains. This scholar, Ayatollah he was a brilliant scholar. Has written most collection of books. For example, about Shi'a beliefs in the Bible, Sahaba, Shi'a beliefs in Aisha, and many. And he was very close to Al-Azhar. And I remember in London, we hosted him both now. Ayatollah Allama Sayyid Askari was one of the best students of Ayatollah al-Sabah. And he was brilliant. I mean, his writings were wonderful. He has got a lot of books translated to English as well. Look him up, Sayyid Muqtada Askari. He hasn't got the attention deserves, but brilliant. He prolific writer. Even when he passed away, many others praised him. Very big scholar, very. But I've got a picture of them two sitting together in a house with al-Azhar. We have a very good relationship. Tom now has got hundreds of mujtahids. Hundreds. And tens of Maraji. And I hope now you know the difference. A mujtahid is someone who people don't necessarily follow. But he's reached ijtihad, which means he shouldn't be following anyone. He can extract his own laws from Quran and Hadith. After usually takes 30-40 years of houses them. But then a mujtahid teaches bahth al-kharij, which means the final degree of Hausa teachers, where for maybe 6 months he's talking about one subject. And he dissects it and everyone argues and this and that. Wow. 6 months, one topic? Yes, more! I didn't really disagree on the level. And they go through it so much. Normally, the whole fiqh, do it in the high level, 14 years. 13 years in these lessons. I'm at the moment attending these lessons for the past 10 years. So, these lessons are and bringing all the narrations, then discussing their authenticity, then comparing what the ulama say. Then is it what this martyr says? What about that? Okay, is this causing harm? Did this what the Prophet meant? And then usually what happens is the scholar, the mujtahid, discusses it, And then the students say, oh, but this, but that. They need to have knowledge to be able to respond. So they're not at early stages of fiqh. They've passed through elementary stages of fiqh. They've passed through intermediate. This is now higher. This is the higher levels of fiqh. So the mujtahid knows which terminology to use. They use the different terms, which the lay will think, what is he talking about? But this is like PhD level. This is the personal mujtahid. He needs to dissect the subject in so much detail and discuss it himself. It's not like a tool where and the computer can make it easier. It's just he and then comes up with an opinion. So one mujtahid may agree on a hadith, another would say no. It's ijtihad. It's your own deduction. This is a great scholar, Sheikh Hussein Quran, Lebanese, brilliant speaker, died only a few years ago. Brilliant, excellent. May Allah bless his soul. Ayatollah Muhammad Mahadi Ma'rif. Ayatollah Ma'rif has written a monumental work on the sciences of the Quran, which is now taught in courses. Very, very popular collection. Sciences of the Quran means basically all the details about, abrogation, Meccan, Medinite verses, the discussion, for example, regarding the types of tafsir there is, history of the Quran compilation, everything. He's done really good work on it. Past years. The scholar was very well known in London because he spent a long time in London. Ayatollah Sayyid Hakim was the brother of Ayatollah Baqir Hakim. Remember, he was blown to pieces when he came to Iraq. Ayatollah Baqir Hakim and Sayyid Hakim are the sons of Ayatollah Muhsin Hakim. Great lecture. Sayyid Hakim in 1988 went to Sudan for a conference. Saddam was very assassinated. But he was very well known in London because he was respected. Yeah, so this is one of the greatest scholars of our time. He's referred to here as the head of Shi'ism. In this particular chart, takes his lineage all the way to Imam Ali. See? For the Jaddi, go all the way up. And at the top is Imam Ali. Most scholars. Yes, there was scholars. Can you see? This is a very important segment. This is where the biggest Hausa lesson takes. Ayatollah al-Hilli.
صداش بزن یا شب میلاد امام حسین علیه السلام بلند صداش بزن یا کریم یا رب یا وانت تعلم ضعفی عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها ألا أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكروه يسير بقاء قصير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي